The imagination has to be seen of as much larger than our merely limited human minds. And since Blake believed in angels and God, there's a whole realm of consciousness, of imagination, that goes far beyond the human realm. If I understand Blake correctly, he was talking about a living world, a world permeated by consciousness and spirit, full of life and quality. I think the science of the next millennium, certainly the next century, will be much closer to the kind of view that Blake was trying to give.
Man is born like a garden, ready planted and sown. This world is too poor to produce one seed. And I have fought for all these years, armed with the one power alone which makes a poet. Imagination, divine vision. O rose, thou art sick, the invisible worm that flies in the night, in the howling storm, has found out thy bed of crimson joy, and his dark secret love does thy life destroy.
But when I read O Rose, Thou Art Sick, the invisible worm that flies in the night in the howling storm has found out thy bed of crimson joy, and his dark secret love does your life destroy. It's almost hard to think about it. It's so extraordinary and so aware that if one poem changed my life, it would be that. I found him immensely relevant as I went through university and then went into business. I'm never very far from Blake. I find him a presence that I find incredibly practical and useful. I think it's wise for those in power in business to maintain that respect. I find him, in that sense, meeting his eye sometimes. He saw the balance of humanity was under threat because he had, after all, been born in the middle of a period of enlightenment where reason reigned, eclipsing everything else. He saw, as we look back now, as a prophet saw, that there were real dangers in the satanic mills. And I feel that that anti-materialism, which so isolated him in his time, would isolate him now, actually, is absolutely crucial to the health of modern society.
The kings and nobles of the land have done it. Hear it not, heaven. Thy ministers have done it. Behold, London, the human awful wonder of God. I wander through each dirty street, near where the dirty Thames does flow, and mark in every face I meet marks of weakness, marks of woe, in every cry of every man, in every infant's cry of fear, in every voice, in every band, the mind-forged manacles I hear. How the chimney sweeper's cry blackens o'er the church's walls, and the hapless soldier's sigh runs in blood down palace walls. But most the midnight harlot's curse from every dismal street I hear weaves around the marriage hearse and blasts the newborn infant's tear.
Blake saw very clearly what was happening to England and to London. He saw that it was being turned into mechanism, into reproductive imagery, into salesmanship, into information rather than understanding, into all the arts, which he called the arts of death, which the 19th and 20th centuries exploited to their utmost extent.
The beggar's rags fluttering in air does to rags the heavens tear. One could, it sticks in your mind, and you wonder what it means really until you finally puzzle out in the 20th century that any nation that would allow many beggars in rags to be lying in doorsteps looking at heaven through their ragged sleeves would be the kind of desensitized society that would punch a hole in the ozone layer and tear the heavens to rags, literally.
It's as if his fall from normal life had broken him open to all sorts of perceptions which seem to us very modern. For example, his belief that war and repressed sexuality were connected. His belief that animals should not be treated badly. And there's the poem about every cry from a hunted hare, a fibre from a brain does tear. There's the famous poem Little Black Boy, in which he suggests or asserts that all human beings are part of a divine family, and that there should be no, to use a modern phrase, discrimination against various sorts of people. So in all those respects, he was remarkably aligned to late 20th perceptions of human reality. He also, in a sense, created his own religion. And there are plenty of people who, even now, find in Blake solace, comfort, consolation, and more importantly, belief. He believed he might rebuild Jerusalem in London.
Neuroscientist Dr. Eric Kandel proved that you can grow new brain cells and rebuild your brain.
And did those feet in ancient time walk upon England's mountains green? And was the holy Lamb of God on England's pleasant pastures seen? And did the countenance divine shine forth upon our clouded hills? And was Jerusalem builded here among these dark satanic mills?
Of course, it's quite impossible to summarize Blake's vision in a phrase. Him, it's a lifetime of learning, aspiring, trying to understand. But if there's one sentence which comes close to the heart of his vision, it's when he says to see a world in a grain of sand. Because for him, the universe was a total entity, an integrated whole. Things seen, things unseen, things corporeal, incorporeal, the past, the present, the future, were part of this total entity, this spiritual entity, which for him was the universe itself.
To see the world in a grain of sand, and heaven in a wild flower. Hold infinity in the palm of your hand, and eternity in an hour.
He was the greatest religious poet England has ever produced. Reality for him was the whole vision of eternity, which surrounded him night and day, as he talks about angels surrounding him night and day. And then in the end, he talks about how his works are being admired in the palaces of eternity, how the angels are celebrating his work. And that, again, is part of his sense of eternity being present to the wise continually. He says at one point, a fool sees not the same tree as a wise man sees. This, of course, goes back to his earlier visions of Peckham Rye, where he saw trees filled with angels. But it also emphasizes a more important truth, that if you could divest yourself of material vision, as he says, everyone will see what I see. And what we come to understand at the end of our own present century is that his vision is so prescient, his poetry and painting so marvelous, that he's of the same stature as Milton, as Chaucer, as Shakespeare.
Did I tell you I was Socrates, or a sort of brother? I must have had conversations with him. I also had conversations with Jesus Christ. I have an obscure recollection of being with both of them. I should be sorry if I had any earthly fame, for whatever natural glory a man has is so much detracted from his spiritual glory. I wish to do nothing for profit. I wish to live for art. I want nothing whatever. I am quite happy. Hear the voice of the bard, who present, past, and future sees, whose ears have heard the holy word that walked among the ancient trees, calling the lapsed soul, and weeping in the evening dew, that might control the starry pole, and fallen light renew. O earth, return. Arise from out the dewy grass. Night is worn, and the morn rises from the slumberous mass. Turn away no more. Why wilt thou turn away? The starry floor, the watery shore, is given thee till break of day. The eye, altering, alters all.
Yeah. Any final comments on William Blake?
I think he could be writing today very easily.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
That inner vision of seeing the divine in everything. You know, and Van Gogh certainly, I think, was also experiencing and trying to paint that. And that's what's been lost. I just heard, I was listening to a really good talk by Llewellyn Bonley, a Sufi teacher who I like. But it used to be at some point, and maybe got carried on, you know, millennium ago, carried on by indigenous people, that the sacred was part of everyday life. It was in themselves, in nature, and that the rituals that sustain that were part of our human experience. And that's been lost. And it was gradually getting lost, and then the Industrial Revolution really sped up and now the underlying premise of our culture and is that it's totally materialistic, and human beings can be explained by brain chemistry alone, and people are, that's it. And there's no more to them. The soul or God is somewhere else. It's not in, you know, and that we pay a huge price for that. Society's paid a huge price for that. And last class we were talking about suicide. You know, over 1 million people kill themselves every year, and the culture no longer supports that, and the environment, and less and less and less so does not support that. So we have to turn inward to find that. It used to be supported in the culture and the world and environment, and it's hard to, you know, so this, you know, artists like William Blake, and there has been this tradition, this spiritual tradition that has been there since art first drawing, cave drawings, on until today, that art is to maybe reconnect us with this, with spirit. And it doesn't have to be, and it can be done in everyday life and everyday objects. And I think William Blake was saying that it doesn't just have to be images of Jesus and Mary or statues and all that. It's right here, you know. And Rembrandt certainly painted, you know, that light shining through people's eyes and forehead. That's, you know, the divine spark coming through. Van Gogh in the landscape, it's there. Look, it's here. You know, it's in a grain of sand. Do a painting of a grain of sand that's glowing with divine energy. It's a spiritual work of art. Is the Sistine Chapel. So it's really good just to remember that William Blake saw that, experienced it. Apparently, he was an advanced soul. I heard that. I heard that Mayor Wallace said that, and so that he was a prophet, and he coming and then writing this poetry and doing this artwork right at the time the Industrial Revolution was taking off in England, and was probably at its worst. It was uncontrolled. I mean, there's factories and child labor, and oh my God, you know, pollution. London was a horrible, horrible place, and the exploitation, and it was worse in the feudal area. At least peasants were out in the fields. You know, here you're just locked in these factories and etc. And just the degradation.
The feudal area wasn't any good either, really. If you
Hey, what?
the feudal area, feudal era was so horrendous.
I know, but these people were outside. Outside, so I just meant that.
Yeah.
Fresh air.
I had a question.
Yeah.
You just touched on it. I was just wondering if Blake was on some kind of plane or.
I've heard that. I can't remember where I read it in the Mayor Bible literature. I was looking for it. I was looking for it in Lord Mayor. I couldn't find it, but I have heard
The way he
been,
talked, the way he
yeah,
talked about life just makes it seem that, I mean, it seems like he was in another world.
He was on an airplane. Yeah, that's my feeling. And I think he was one of Mayor Baba's favorite poets in school, but Baba said something about him later. And if anybody finds it, let us know, because I couldn't find it. I did all kinds of Google searches before last week's class, 2 weeks ago. I couldn't find it. But anyway, certainly a visionary, spiritually mystic. And yeah, okay. So we owe a lot to him. And it's good to know that he's still, this influence reverberates today. And I covered Dylan, Joni Mitchell, other artists have been really influenced, painters and poets and songwriters, so.
I just can't get over how multifaceted he was. The writings, the paintings, and the copper plates. And he reminds me in a way of some Leonardo da Vinci and being so
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, right.
No, no.
Okay, so
for a few minutes.
Okay, so we're going to start looking at Delacroix, French Romantic. So you've heard of him, you will recognize some of his paintings. Everyone's seen them. Let's just start with wiki art. Go to Wikipedia, then I'll do the usual.
I haven't got it yet.
Okay, so some people have their, if you can mute your mics, everybody. There he is. Eugene Delacroix, 1798. You see, he's born around that same time. There's amazing changes happening throughout Europe.
Yeah.
Okay, could you, Don and Erm, could you mute your mic?
Do what?
Can you mute your mic?
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Okay. This revolution happening, freedom and brotherhood, fraternity, the revolution in France, the American Revolution, all this. Valuing the individual like never before, maybe a little bit happened in Greece, but like never before, individual, that theme still runs through, these protests in Ottawa, freedom, independence. It can go to the extreme where people no longer care about what's good for the whole, for the community. It's just me, my freedom, my independence. But this was new. The individual never had freedom before. They were just there's just the aristocracy, the top 2%, and then everybody else was just a serf. Maybe there's emerging class. So considered the leader of the French Romantic school painting, Delacroix was a prolific artist, producing over 9,000 works. Yikes. During his lifetime, ranging from paintings, watercolor, pastels, and drawings. His work both shaped the Impressionist artist's big influence and inspired the Symbolist movement. Certainly Matisse, not all the Impressionist painters were influenced by him. They were even Picasso really respected him. Taking inspiration from Rubens and the Venetian Renaissance painters, and they're talking about Titian and Tintoretto, who lived at the same time. You can see Delacroix as a master colorist with the influence of the Venetian school. His painting style emphasized colors and movement, dramatic movement, rather than carefully modeled form and clear outline. After completing his education in the art, he submitted his first work to the Paris Salon, blah, 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 and was accepted 1822. Let's see, this began first his work, this was a pattern. First his work would be criticized, but later accepted and purchased by the state or personal patrons. His works revolve around many themes inspired by the works of Shakespeare, Goethe, Byron, and entailed the motives of violence and sensuality, the female nude.
When was he born?
He was born in 1798, and he died in 1863. So actually probably modern. Okay. Perhaps his most widely known piece is Liberty Leading the Republic. I'm sure you've seen that, which evoked the image of liberty leading the people. The French government initially bought the painting, but soon deemed it too anti-establishment, and withdrawn from view. He went to Morocco to escape Paris and experience a more primitive culture. Okay, his time there inspired over 100 paintings, and he compared the people there to the early citizens of Rome and Greece. And Matisse was later influenced by him and carried on. He was doing Odalisque and the thing, and Matisse knew that Delacroix had gone to Morocco. Let's see, he's most likely the illegitimate son of Talleyrand, the famous French diplomat, as his father never conceived any other children. After both his parents died, leaving him an orphan at the age of 16, he spent much of life under the protection of the Frenchman, Talleyrand, I guess. His legacy includes a number of portraits, landscapes, and figure painting. He also helped found the Société Nationale des Beaux-Arts, along with other notable French artists of his day. His face was featured on the French banknote minted in 2003. Okay. Let me just jump over the Wikipedia entry and look at their
Hey,
payments.
Joe, do you mind slowing down just a tiny
Oh,
bit?
sorry. Okay.
You
Okay, I will.
going so doggone fast. Thanks.
Before we got these paintings, let's see, travel to North Africa. Delacroix drew inspiration from many sources over his career, Shakespeare, Byron, Michelangelo, but throughout his life, he felt a constant need for music, saying that nothing can compare with the emotion caused by music, that it expresses incomparable shades of feeling. He also said while working at St. Sulpice that music put him in a state of exaltation that inspired his paintings. It was often from music, whether the most melancholy renditions of Chopin or the pastoral works of Beethoven, that Delacroix was able to draw the most emotion and inspiration. He made portraits, he was friends with Chopin, and Delacroix praised him frequently. He did murals later in life, although it became increasingly fragile, and he said that he was kind of worn out from doing them. And then his reputation went downhill after he died. And then I think it was revived later after the Impressionists. So let's look at some of his work. And I have videos on him, so. That's another drawing. This is one of the first paintings he exhibited at the Salon and was criticized as being too bleak. But what it portrays is, I think, the Turkish slaughter of Greeks. There's some incident that happened. So I guess these are Turks in the background. And this was new, showing victims of war. And this theme of the symbolic female who's a leader, an inspirer, like a St. Joan of Arc figure, appears. The muse, could be the muse. It's interesting. It's like the feminine that's inspiring freedom, independence, and change.
What's the name of that one? That one's really nice.
Greece on the ruins of Missolonghi. There's probably a story that goes with that. I guess she represents Greece. Again, the Romantic tradition of going back to a time or idealizing a time when human spirit was operating in a really positive way, like in ancient Greece, and reminding people of these compared to what was happening in the modern world and the oppression. I've seen this, Philadelphia Museum of Art. The death of Sardanapalus. So again, just looking at his composition, it's really busy. It must be a biblical story. There's a king there in the royal bed with the royal red robes and his concubines. I don't know what the story is, but just looking at the complexity of the painting, the richness of the colors, the warm tone, just the reds and golds, and then the muted dark colors. So, he's showing.
Is that a war scene?
No, I don't think so. No, I mean
It looks like it.
but it looks like this king is in his bedroom. He's in bed, so all this is happening around him, and maybe he's condensed the story into just one picture. But I guess what impresses me is just the fluidity, the movement. It's like a churning sea of bodies, and then there's this stationary king here. And it looks like females are being raped or coerced and brought into that. I don't know what the story is, but I'm just looking at his technical skill here and his use of color, muted greens and highlight reds.
That's
Yeah.
why I thought it was a war scene,
Yeah,
because it looked like they were abusing them.
yeah, it's like the rape of the Sabines or something, and it's, yeah. Or maybe they're bringing the victims to the king, their soldiers have conquered the city, grabbing the woman and bringing his, they're going to be part of his harem from now on. It could be that, yeah. Or post, it's right after the conquest of the city, for instance. Horse frightened by a storm. So this dramatic action, maybe drawing on Caravaggio, ability to portray the dramatic moment. So the horse is scared by the thunder and lightning. So yeah, I think before this, horses were either stationary, kings or princes were sitting on them, maybe in a battle. But so just the horse by itself is different. The tail looks like there's a face in it. It's interesting. Maybe getting at the raw power of nature, not only the thunder, the lightning, the storm on the sea, and then the raw energy of the horse. It's all one thing.
Yeah, his mane flows into the clouds.
Yeah, exactly, right up here. The clouds and the mane all just merge all together. Animal energy, natural energy. So yeah, that's a romantic theme, the power of nature. And the awesome power of nature, which can be very fearful and harmful, and it's not all pleasant. This famous painting, you've seen this, haven't you? Anybody? Liberty leading the papal. It's in the Louvre. This is like the painting that he's known for, and it's you could say it captures the.
Is that French though? The French Revolution, right?
Yeah, it's capturing the whole energy and theme and driving force of the French Revolution. Yes, that's it. This is the painting. Again, it's the female who's leading the charge, the Joan of Arc, and the French flag there, and just from a compositional point of view, you can look at the triangle, the pyramid, up here, and then the trail, the river of people just charging forward, dead bodies in the foreground. But it doesn't matter, we're going to fight for our freedom, our independence. Suggestion of a city in the background. Don't know what that's about, but it looks like it's on fire. Being destroyed. Young, even the youth here. He's not carrying it's not the bugle boy or the horn or the little drummer boy. This kid's got two weapons. Right? That's very modern in that sense. Yeah. So this is a famous painting in the Louvre. It's like the paint the French Revolution. The theme is the inspiration of it in one scene. So that's what he's known for this painting. Christ on the Sea of Galilee, again, capturing that moment when the ship's about to sink, the storms, at its height, Jesus is sleeping there, and the disciples are panicking, praying to Jesus. So dramatic action. He's known for that. And taking well-known stories, Bible stories, mythology stories, etc. Convulsionist of Tangier. So this now is in Morocco. So don't know what's happening there, but convulsionist, I don't know what that means. There's maybe some kind of a street revolt or protest going on in the street, but he's capturing the color of it. And again, it's kind of similar to the French Revolution thing. Something's, there's a change in the air, and it's some kind of street battles going on, and flags, and just the technical skill of capturing all these people, making it seem, getting the values right. It's not easy to do.
Where is that one? That one looks like Morocco or something.
It's called Tangiers. It's in Tangiers. It is Morocco, yeah.
Oh.
Joe?
Yes.
I just looked up the death of Sardanapalus.
Okay.
And it was Delacroix, is that a croix? I don't know my French. Wanted to emphasize the magnitude of disaster. The ancient king is surrounded by chaos. He has just ordered the death of his women, slaves, horses, and most treasures concubine, after learning of the defeat of his army.
Okay. So it's defeated, the army was defeated. All right. Okay. Wow. Yeah, so okay. Thank you.
No, it's interesting.
Yeah, that he's everybody.
So what city was that again? I keep missing part of the words.
There was a battle and the king's army lost, and therefore he orders the death of all his concubines and attendants.
Right.
Yeah.
So, but what was the battle that was lost? The name of the battle?
Oh, okay. I don't know. Say it again, Marcia. What's the name of the painting? What's the name of the painting?
Oh, the death of Sardanapalus.
Say that again. The battle.
The death of what the battle?
The battle name?
It was Sardanapalus. Sardanapalus.
Yeah, so I'm not sure when that took place.
And Lord Byron was influenced by the Greek historian Diodorus. I guess he wrote of the tragedy of Sardanapalus.
Okay, so it sounds like a Greek battle.
Yep, it sure does.
All right, so
It was related to Sardinia.
yeah, maybe, I don't know. Okay, so let's stay with the paintings, and we could get into the history, but really we're not. And this with this class. It's not, the point of the painting isn't to portray historical events. It's to get at the emotion and psychological truths. And we're looking at this is something I was thinking of this week about art, the purpose of art. So I'll just share it because it came up in another class of mine about historical accuracy. There's different kinds of truths. Okay, history, science is about facts, factual truths, events. And that's the job of history. History leans towards science and being accurate in research. Okay, art is about the realm of art is different kind of truths. It's emotional truths, psychological truths, spiritual truths, aesthetic truths, beauty, and it'll take facts, oftentimes, and then put it through the fire of the artist's imagination and come up with a work of art that's original, but that evokes those kind of truths. It's a different realm of truths. Okay, so for instance, if you were working on a PhD in British history and you wanted to specialize on Richard III's reign and do your PhD thesis on that, you would be a fool to rely on Shakespeare's Richard play, the Richard III. And anyway, you wouldn't get past your advisor if that was your main source of information. He took the facts, some basic facts about Richard III. He was a hunchback. He was, he was pretty cruel. He had these psychological problems, basic facts, and he made this masterpiece to play. But it's not historically accurate. That's not the point. The point is this play is a masterpiece in one of history plays that evokes psychological truths, emotional truths, spiritual truths, and that's what art's about. Okay, so again, Picasso, if he had, let's say, if he had access to photographs of Guernica, the bombing, the actual bombing, I don't know if he did, but let's say he did, he could have done some close-up painting of the actual event and would have been historically accurate, but he did not do that. He took the facts of the bombing of Guernica by the Nazis helping out Franco and created a masterpiece, Guernica, which went through the fire of his imagination. So that's art. That's the difference. It is a different truths, different. So I've been just want to share this thoughts. So I'm looking at his use of color here, because his color is all these golds and reds. It's a very reduced palette. Use this palette. You can create paintings with 2 or 3 colors and mixing them together in various proportions. Maybe adding a little white to create a tint, a little bit of black to create a tone, or mixing complementary colors. And then green is the complement of red, and there's that green flag, right? Blue and orange are complementary colors, but the main complements are, I mean, it's a study. It's a warm tone palette. It's all in the bright oranges, yellows, reds, and then the cool, the blue. But then that green will jump out, which is on the green is cool, okay, but it's surrounded by warm colors. Okay? It's in Tangiers, it's in Morocco, so he captures that, the light on the buildings, etc., on their clothes. Okay, so, but this crowd, painting a crowd like that in action is difficult to do, and everybody seems to be an individual. There's all things happening, okay, but where's the focal point? There's always kind of looking for the focal point. The eye kind of comes in here into this space, this opening, and there's some event happening right here. The crowd surging forward. There's something. So I'm not sure who they have, but that doesn't, the details of the history don't matter. Really, just looking at the.
To me, the flag is the focal point.
Yeah, the eye. Well, I'm saying the eye. There's one. A plane can have more than one focal point. So the eye, my eye goes in here. It's there. Goes here. Then it kind of sweeps around to there. Yeah, doesn't have that. But definitely. But I just feel like the sweep this way. Up in his arms are pointing up. Yeah, and then it goes. The flag really jumps out. Yeah. And you got the groups of people on the rooftop. Kind of. It's got like a triangular. This triangle effect there. Yeah. Okay. Self-portrait. Oh, we'll look at that. Don't go too soon. Curious mixture of skepticism, politeness, dandyism, willpower, cleverness, despotism, and kind of special goodness and tenderness that always accomplishes. Oh yeah, thank you. Oh, wow, yeah. Medea about to kill her children. So Greek myth. He's painting. It seems very Renaissance style. Doesn't seem like a modern. Rubens. He was very influenced by Rubens. So maybe when did he paint this? Might have been, painting in the Rubens style. The bark of Dante. So he's doing a painting from the Divine Comedy. Now he's getting into the modern era here with this. I mean, the nude had been painted, going back for Titian, and he's picking up on it, doing it his own way. And very modern painting, beautiful. And the skin tones, just the overall warm tones. Oftentimes you see with nudes, there's the background's dark, and they make the nude stand up, but it's and also what I'm getting is it's all one piece, the unity of tone, that the skin color and the background wall and floor and what she's sitting on, that's all integrated. It's all just one tonal unity that he's captured here. He's probably, he's painting on the warm side of the palette of the color wheel. A little bit of complementary here, greens to offset the reds, but it's gray down greens. But this golden light, The famous painting, Orphan Girl at the Cemetery. You may have seen this. What's she looking at? I don't know. Something's caught her attention or fear. Orphan Girl at the Cemetery. So she visiting her parents. I don't know what is she seeing? Deceased parents. But to me, she looks frightened. Like she's seen a ghost. Louis of Orleans unveiling his mistress. Right. Okay. Exploitation of woman theme here. Why does he just purchase her or something? I don't know. You can kind of put yourself in her shoes. She's shy, embarrassed, horrified. I don't know. He's looking at her like it's a new car or something, right? The portraits.
What was the title of the last one?
Louis of Orleans. I guess a prince unveiling his mistress. By who is this? His assistant. Like, oh, look what I found for you. Okay, this dramatic action, the combat of the Glover and Hassan is what he's also well known for. You know, portraying these horses and also Moors fighting. You know, capturing. It's really magnificent that the way he captured this action. And it's all one piece. I'm always struck by the unity of the tone. How this background just blends into the movements and this whole center swirl, the horse this way, this horse this way, his back, his front. The flow.
So that one in Spain?
Art Institute of Chicago.
No.
It's taking place. It doesn't say where. It could be anywhere. But the costumes, the outfits look like it's North Africa.
Well, the Moors were inhabited Spain, you know, the lower half for a long.
That's true, because there's no time period here. So there must be a story, Glover and Hassan, and that would probably set the timing, the time of it. Okay. But again, that's secondary. The actual event, what is paying to the we're looking at the art of it. Yeah, the horse's mane kind of just merging into the mountain background over here. And you can see how he influenced Renoir and Matisse. They just picked up on these OLLI themes. Woman with a parrot. That's funny. It's funny. Yeah. Very modern. Manet. They were all influenced by him. Another one. Woman with white socks. Looks like a dancer, maybe. I don't know. Boy, tell me this isn't. I thought, oh, Matisse did this. They put a Matisse painting in here. I guess not. Tell me that. Tell me Matisse was not influenced by him. This is so Matisse, right? With the stripes and the simple pattern. Oh, yeah. He was a major influence on Matisse.
It also looks a little bit like, I think it's Van Gogh who does something similar.
Yeah.
With a red wall or something.
Yeah. I would say a little Van Gogh, I agree. But Matisse for sure too, both of them. Yeah. I could say lots of Matisse's painting like this. Yeah. That's pretty traditional. Again, the action. The Woman of Algiers, and he did 100 paintings of that setting. And again, Matisse picked up on it and continued. All right, so I just want to give you a flavor of his works and the kind of works he did. Let's just watch some of the short videos I have. What time we got here? Time flies, doesn't it? We didn't get to the video yet. Let's see, what is digital smart histories? Copy.
Actual person. It's a We're in the Louvre in Paris looking at a large canvas by Delacroix, Liberty Leading the People. This painting dates to 1830. This is Romanticism.
It depicts an event of 1830. This is a contemporary subject. It's important to remember that large paintings like this were generally reserved for history paintings, at least according to the rules of the Academy. But here, like Géricault before him, Delacroix is taking on a contemporary subject. This is something that people in Paris experienced in July of 1830.
This was the revolution that ousted the reactionary king Charles X and installed on the throne the more moderate king Louis Philippe.
But we're seeing a moment where the outcome of the revolution is not sure. We're seeing fighting on the streets of Paris. We see the very recognizable Cathedral of Notre Dame in the background.
Notre Dame was a symbol of the monarchy. It was a symbol of conservatism. And yet Delacroix represents at the top of one of its towers the tricolor, the flag of the revolutionaries.
Liberty is an allegorical figure. She is a symbol of an idea that led the revolutionaries, many of them, to give up their lives to oust a conservative and reactionary monarch.
One might just think of the Statue of Liberty. That's not an actual person. It's a personification of an idea. And here, too, this woman is a personification of the idea of liberty, the idea of freedom. The fact that her breasts are visible is a reference to antiquity, to the birth of democracy, to ancient Greece, and the Roman Republican tradition.
Liberty strides across the barricade, this barrier that has been set up in the streets of Paris.
Paris was still a medieval city with narrow, winding streets. The grand boulevards of the later 19th century had not yet been built. And so what the revolutionaries did is they dug up the cobblestones that paved the streets and they piled them up and erected these barricades that were both defensive positions but also impeded the movements of the royalist troops.
But what's fascinating to me is this call by Liberty to climb over the barricade, to trespass that barrier and to move forward, to continue to fight even more aggressively for these ideals.
Liberty's face is shown in a perfect classical profile, recalling ancient Greek and Roman images. But in doing so, she's also turning around to call the rebels forward. And we can see this throng of people moving into the distance. But in the foreground, we see two very particular figures. We see a man with a pistol in his waist. He wears a shirt with no jacket. He's a member of the lower class. But the pin in his hat expresses that he's got revolutionary sympathies.
Delacroix is clearly giving us this idea of people of all classes coming together, because the figure right next to the worker is more nicely dressed. He's got a top hat on, a jacket, a vest. He holds a hunting rifle instead of a pistol.
And so this revolution is not only for the poor, it's also for the middle classes.
Which is what makes it so profoundly dangerous. This is not one class against another. These are the people coming together.
On the right side of the canvas is a boy who holds not one but two pistols and seems rather wild. He's a schoolboy, and you know that from the velvet cap he wears and from the satchel at his side.
Below him, we see two soldiers who have fallen. And so it's not just that Delacroix is giving us this sense of victory, of liberty, striding forward, but also the terrible costs of revolution.
Best summed up for me by the man in the lower left, who's wearing a nightshirt as if he's been dragged from his bed and murdered by royalist soldiers. He's only wearing one sock. His shirt has drawn up, and so he's nude from the waist down.
And his shirt is bloodied, and he's incredibly close to us. In fact, his right arm is foreshortened and moves into our space. But the figures in the foreground of the dead and the dying and the wounded are all in our space. This is a painting much like Jericho's Raft of Medusa or Grove's Pest House at Jaffa that puts forward the violence in an unidealized way.
The entire scene is one of chaos, one of energy. It is filled with diagonals, with smoke, with movement, and yet Delacroix has also contrived a classicizing pyramid to organize all of these figures, creating a sense of order within the chaos. One of the reasons the painting feels so energetic is because of the loose brushwork and because of the brilliant colors that Delacroix uses. The tricolor, the blues in the sky, the red sash of the figure that looks up to liberty all stand out and are in stark contrast to the more muted colors that were traditional at this moment.
Delacroix is violating so many of the rules of the Academy. This is not a painting with perfect finish. In other words, we easily see the hand of the artist, the brushwork. This is not a painting where we see a careful attention to line and contour. Rather, we have a sense of the openness of contours, of the looseness of the handling of the paint.
And the contingency of each of these figures, that if we waited just a moment, they would all have shifted position.
This painting was purchased by King Louis Philippe to show that he was a champion of Republican values, and by Republican we mean the ideals of democracy. But before the decade was over, in 1839, the painting was returned to Delacroix because it was perceived as dangerous. This was an image that showed people coming together to overthrow a king, after all. But in 1848, at the time of the next revolution, when Louis Philippe is ousted, this painting is returned to the museum once again. This is a good reminder of just how politicized art could be in the 19th century in France.
It's considered one of the great paintings of the 19th century, Romanticism. Here's, okay, the death of Sardanapalus. Here's a, oh, I forgot I had a little smart history thing on that. So we'll get more information, Elizabeth, about that.
We're in the Louvre and we're looking at Delacroix's The Death of Sardanapalus, which was exhibited at the Salon of 1827.
It's a huge canvas, and it turns every classical rule on its head.
Including the idea of having a painting with a hero. Here we have Sardanapalus, who is anything but a hero.
This is the height of Romantic painting, and in fact, its story comes from a Romantic poet, Lord Byron, and it's the story of this Assyrian king Sardanapalus, who is being vanquished in battle, but rather than surrender, has decided not only to kill himself, he's going to destroy everything that he finds pleasure in. The women, his slaves, all of his ornament, all of his treasure will be burned, everything will come to an end. So this is a giant funerary pyre.
So he sits high up on that bed, propping his head up, looking with supreme indifference at the end of the lives of the women in his life, the end of all of his beautiful possessions.
So this is a painting that is about corruption, and it is the antithesis of the nobility of David and of the neoclassical tradition that came before Romanticism.
If you think back to neoclassical paintings with their very rigorous construction of space, where you can really clearly see where everything is in relationship to everything else, here we have a space that's just full of objects, all of the king's really luxurious possessions, gold and jewels and horses, and the space isn't so much constructed as filled up.
And it feels like everything in it, all the bodies, the horses, the objects, they're all flames themselves, recalling the flame that's about to be there, licking up in these serpentine, curvilinear forms. So look at the horse, for instance, which is practically an S shape. Look at one of the arms of the harp that's in the bottom middle, or the women themselves, these arabesques. You can look at the scarf at the bottom of the bed. All of these things are snake-like and serpentine, as if they themselves are the flames that are referenced.
So there's all of this sense of writhing movement, but the king at the top, who sits very still and watches with that corrupt gaze on this bed that's foreshortened. And so we have this idea of everything spilling down into our space, very much the artist's intention to engage the viewer and to appeal to our emotions. The woman in the foreground is being brutally murdered right before our eyes. The horse is being pulled against its will to a funeral pyre. This is a scene of death and destruction that's happening as close as possible to the viewer's space.
This must have been such a huge shock to a public that was used to looking at the clarity and precision of geometry, the rationalism, the heroism of the neoclassical. All of this violence, all of this luxury is perfectly suited to Delacroix's signature use of brilliant color, at least in contrast to the kind of modulation of color that the very subtly colored paintings that were traditional in the Salon before.
If we look at the flesh of the figures, we don't see just that normal tonal modeling that we'd come to expect in neoclassical paintings, but we see figures where the shadows are greens and blues and the highlights are oranges and gold. Delacroix is really thinking about color in a much more emotional and passionate way.
This painting really is an orgy of violence, it's an orgy of luxury, and it's an orgy of corruption.
So it's good to put it in the historical context and contrast how he painted it with the neoclassical formality, and how the people of the time would have been never seen anything like that. You know, we're probably used to it, but how revolutionary it was. Okay. Yeah.
What most later artists admired about the work of Eurene Delacroix was its colour. Cézanne said he had the most beautiful palette in France. But what was it that they were so excited about? Perhaps the single most important thing about Delacroix's work is that it treats everything as if it were coloured. So he doesn't just consider objects in the light as having colour, but also shadows and so-called half-tones, the areas between light and shade. To understand his ideas about colour.
Yeah, and that became a hallmark of the Impressionists, Monet. The shadows are not black or dark, they have color. And they're often the complement of the light that they're in. Yellow light, complement of yellow is violet. So you see the violet and the blue shades in and Delacroix. Probably one of the first people to really do that.
We need to consider the notion of primary and secondary colours and complementaries. What these terms mean is best understood by looking at this colour circle from a book by Léonore Mérimée of 1830, which Delacroix probably knew. This shows us that opposite the three painters' primary colours, namely red, blue and yellow, lie the three mixed or secondary colours, purple, green and orange. For Delacroix then, colours formed complementary pairs, meaning that they enhanced each other when placed side by side. In this version he made of his own painting, The Death of Sardanapalus, we can see how Delacroix has used complementary pairs to produce rich contrast. But it's important to realise that Delacroix is not always consistent. In the naked torsos, Delacroix seems to have introduced the secondary colours, orange, purple and to a lesser extent green, into the flesh colours to give them variety. It is as if these secondary colours were reflections of some kind. Delacroix's way of using colour was undoubtedly idiosyncratic and complicated, but its great advantage and its lasting impact on later artists is that it allowed him to link colours together. And in this painting, Moroccan mounting his horse, Delacroix brings together complementary colours and closely related colours too, whilst blending them together using tiny flecks of paint in a technique he called flochetage. It's particularly this aspect of Delacroix's work, continually weaving colours together across the whole canvas, that so excited later painters, and Cézanne particularly.
We all paint in Delacroix's language. So, the impact he had on art. He's one of the fathers of modern art for sure. Oops, I don't want to do that.
Hey Joe, he also reminds me of the colors that Artemisia Gentileschi Dalomi was so famous for.
Okay.
Yeah, and she always did her father's palettes from the time she was 5 or 6. But for example, this amazing green, and she'd do the lapis lazuli blue, and the painting of Esther is a good example of it.
She was a colorist, and Delacroix studied the old masters, and the where is she from? Rome or up north? I forget. Do you remember? Remember where he?
We're in the Louvre and we're looking at Delacroix, The Death of Sardin.
Do you remember where she's from, Elizabeth?
Oh, and Artemisia, she's from Italy.
Yeah, I know. Where in Italy?
I think she was born in Florence, then moved to Rome. She also painted in Vienna and oh God, what other place? And then she also painted in England. She painted kings and these things.
But that's true. She had a very colorful palette, and so Delacroix. I don't know if he had seen her work, because maybe not, but.
So she was at the time of Caravaggio. She was.
That's right. Yeah. So
was that before Delacroix?
Buster of this fall.
Oh yeah, way before Caravaggio. We're talking about the 1600s. So she was 15. She lived in 1500s and into the 1600s. So, but he studied these old masters in Venetian school, Florence school, and was influenced by how their the use of color, tissue.
Art season is Delacroix, a retrospective exhibition of the great 19th century French painter. Jeffrey Brown reports from the Metropolitan Museum in New York.
He's one of the great figures in art history, Eurene Delacroix. Fantastically gifted and prolific, a celebrity who dazzled and often divided the Parisian art world of the mid-19th century. And most of all, became a key bridge toward a new kind of art. Metropolitan Museum curator Asher Miller.
I keep being asked, is he the last old master or is he the first modern painter? He's a little of both and not quite fully either one.
Really?
Yeah, because we see aspects of both in him. So to arrive at one or the other conclusion limits our understanding of him and our ability to delve even deeper.
To art lovers, Delacroix is best known for a handful of works, including Greece on the Ruins of Missolonghi and Women of Algiers. The goal here is to show the artist in full, with nearly 150 paintings, prints, and drawings, as well as pages from the journals he kept throughout his life. One thing that comes through loud and clear, his drive for greatness.
Delacroix was ambitious, if nothing else. His father was a statesman. His mother came from a family of distinguished artisans and craftspeople. His brother-in-law was a general. One brother died in battle. He came of age in 1814, 1815, right at the moment of Napoleon's downfall. So for Delacroix, he needed to find a career, and he needed to make his own mark in the world.
In drawings, you can see Delacroix looking hard at his old masters, including the Venetian Paolo Veronese and Flemish artist Peter Paul Rubens. He took on all kinds of subjects in his work, scenes from literature and mythology, and from North Africa, which he visited with a colonialist-era French diplomatic mission. There are portraits, historical battles, religious imagery, and animals he watched at the zoo, especially tigers and lions. But it's how he painted them that would offer a bridge to future artists. New York Times art critic Roberta Smith.
His achievement is opening the door to modernity, even if he didn't go through it. That he made subsequent generations of artists know that the main thing that mattered was paint and how it is applied, and that when you are looking at a painting, that is the first and sort of the last thing you're looking at. That's what attracts you, is its form. And he made people see that in a completely new way.
Artists have been looking hard ever since. Cézanne said, "You can find all of us in Delacroix." Van Gogh and Picasso voiced their admiration. One way of seeing Delacroix is through his choices in composition and color. Roberta Smith pointed to these two smaller versions of a much larger painting titled The Death of Sardanapalus, which baffled many contemporaries with its wild imagery and style.
The thing that's interesting about this painting, which you see in this gallery in particular, is this kind of compositional daring, where the main figure is pushed away from the center, and the center of the painting is actually empty. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
this
true.
great
Yeah.
swath of salmon pink saying,
Right.
all this stuff is going on, but while you're at it, you can enjoy this amazing extravagance of color that I'm going to present to you.
Even more innovative, as Delacroix made up his own rules, the brushwork and paint itself, so that the painting, says curator Asher Miller, is in some ways about the paint and how it's applied as much as about its subject, even in an otherwise traditional religious scene.
The materiality of the paint. You see little blades of grass, but you read them as brush strokes, so they operate as both.
Artist Walton Ford, known for his exploration of animal imagery, is a contemporary admirer of Delacroix. He showed me a favorite, the lion hunt. Large as it is, it's actually just a fragment. Its top half was damaged in a fire in 1870.
Even though he was looking at Rubens when he painted this, he's got brush strokes in here that look like they'd be comfortable in a Van Gogh painting, in the fur of the lion. Perspective and rendering where, say, the lion's foot is actually in front of the arm that it's attacking that goes back into space. It makes no sense.
It's impossible.
It's an impossible thing.
Yeah.
What he's done is something that later people like Cézanne and Picasso are playing with, that when you do distort these things and play with the rules of perspective or traditional painting styles, you get a certain tension. It's a psychologically confusing place to be. I'm convinced he knew what he was up to.
In one of his new paintings, in homage to the master, Ford couldn't help have some fun with his own version of the painting. An enormous lion, Delacroix's paints and journals strewn about, the artist himself, well, let's say he's no longer in command of the scene.
My interest was that a lion just wants to be a lion. He doesn't want to be a metaphor. So,
Thank you, Mr. Delacroix.
Yeah,
Monsieur.
so he's like, well, if you're going to make me a metaphor, I'm going to make you a meal.
Art lovers can indulge their own appetites for great painting and a key figure in art history. Delacroix, the exhibition, is up through January 6th of next year. For the PBS NewsHour, I'm Jeffrey Brown at the Metropolitan Museum in New York.
That was good. That was a good summary of his painting style, what he was doing that was new, and how he influenced modern art. I like that the one woman said he opened the door. He didn't go through it. He's got one foot in the past. Maybe he's starting to get one foot in the future, but a key transitional figure. Definitely. Any comments? I got a few more. Let's look a little bit at his biography. It's 9-minute. Short. I don't have any extended one. There wasn't any. It was good. And the thing about romantic painting that puts him in that tradition is just color composition. It's not. It's like nature. It's wild. It's you can't make it geometric like the neoclassical style. I mean, you can, but you lose something. What the Romantics wanted to recapture was just the unpredictability, the wildness, the flamboyance of nature and scenes that defy a clear-cut organization. You know, you go out into just walk in the woods around here. It's all a mess, right? It's not a neat path. It's this wildness of nature. What? Someone's going to say something.
Yeah, I was going to say, you know, when we were looking at picture of Liberty, I noticed the use of complementary colors. And I was surprised when they mentioned that. But you could see the background was yellow-green in contrast to the red of that flag.
Yeah, that's a good point. So the general rule for artists using complementary colors and saturation, if you put two complementary colors that are equally vivid or equally saturated, pure hue, like red and green, then you got Christmas, like Christmas. red, pure green. It's not, it's gaudy, put it that way, gaudy if you do that, or any color, yellow and violet, blue and orange. But what Delacroix did, what artists do generally, if you emphasize one of the complements, let's say you want to emphasize red, you want that to jump out and grab your attention visually, then you surround it or put in the vicinity the complement, but it has to be muted, grayed down. Okay, when you do that, then the one you want to emphasize pops out like that. If you have an equal saturation, they compete with each other, and that's would be what gaudiness is. It's like yeah, and well, Christmassy. but yeah, there's greens, but they're grayed down. Now, how do you gray down? There's various ways to. You could just mix. If you got red and green, just mix them together. Put red into that green, and you'll get a grayed down version. Okay, that's one way. Or you could add if it's green, you could add some violet, but just mixing complements. And if you mix them 50%, you're going to get a colored gray in the middle, and they're beautiful. So artists will do that. They'll use grays. Look at, I'll start showing you when we're looking at canvases, that there has to be these colored grays. And by gray, it's not black and white mixed together. It's mixing complements. If you mix yellow and orange in various proportions, you're going to get beautiful colored grays. Colored grays add beauty to a canvas, and but they're much more subtle. You don't want to unless you're doing some really intense modern art abstract painting where everything's equally saturated. That's more modern. But if you want to create perspective or a natural scene, then you got to have colored grays, and only the saturated colors are much more limited in use and where they're placed. Okay, so just some artistic.
That background, maybe it wasn't Liberty, maybe it was the Algiers town, but it was like a yellow green, but a lot of yellow in it.
Yeah, a lot of yellow, yeah. But it was also muted yellow towards gold. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, they're starting to understand the color wheel during his period, how to use triads, and it's all fascinating stuff. Any artist has to study and get to know the color wheel, what colors work together. It's fascinating, and I'm always reviewing that. I'm always go back because it's. Over the bio.
French historical painter, leader of the Romantic movement, Eurene Delacroix was born at Cherton, South Maurice, near Paris, on the 26th of April, 1798. His father, Charles Delacroix, was heavily linked to political causes during the Revolutionary period, serving as a foreign minister under the Directory. Many claim that he could not be the father of Eugene due to infertility at the time of conception. It is believed that Eugene's real father was a man by the name of Talleyrand, Charles Delacroix's political successor and family friend. Talleyrand kept eyes on Eugene throughout his career. Delacroix's early life was filled with danger. As an infant, he was nearly burned due to the negligence of his nurse. While reading a novel, she fell asleep, allowing a lit candle to fall into the cradle of young Eugene. The experience left him with permanent scars on his arms and face. Soon after, one of the family's servants dropped Eugene into the sea while she was preoccupied climbing the side of a ship to see her lover. He was also nearly poisoned and choked. Once, he was found imitating a print of a man hanging himself, nearly killing himself in the process. His formative years were spent at the Lycée Louis-le-Grand, a public secondary school located in Paris. At an early age, Delacroix's talents were recognized by numerous accolades. Under the direction of his mentor, Pierre Narcisse-Guérin, Delacroix explored the work of Jacques-Louis David, one of his main influences. During this time,
In a couple of weeks, when I look at David, neoclassical master.
he met lifelong colleague Ari Scheffer. In 1822, he produced his first important work, The Bark of Dante, painted in his personal studio, leading to an enthusiasm of debate.
There we go. Here's an example of what I just said: red and green, and muted greens. This is a green with tints. It's been mixed with white, a little yellow. These greens have been darkened, but it's still a greenish tone. And there's the red. The red pops out of you as a result of that. Okay. If he had put a saturated green around there, they would compete with each other.
It looks like it's also in contrast with that dark blue.
Where, over here?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's on the other side of the painting. I'm just telling you.
Right.
Yeah, but what's around this red? In the immediate vicinity of red. Here, it's well, you got blue and orange as complements here. So it's actually the orange of the skin in here, and the blue is great. It's darkened. It's been darkened with some highlights, but the orange again. Why is he surrounding this? Why did he choose this color? He's got an orangey, warm tone skin. Why did he put this blue around? He's using complement colors. Why did he choose green for the smock around him? It's done consciously.
It also picks up the color of the arm that's raised. The blue, it looks like blue there as well.
Here?
To me, that looks blue, which picks up of the blue on the other.
Oh, yeah. Okay. No, that's a good point. Yeah. Artists do that. If you got blue, some over here, you want to put it somewhere else in the painting on the other side, and not maybe the exact same value, but to suggest that perhaps creates visual balance. Definitely, yeah. So it gets distributed throughout the painting.
He does the same thing in the ocean, that darker blue with the lighter greenish on the right, and then on the other side, he picks up that similar kind of green and dark blue in the ocean.
Yeah, and again, orange. Okay, go ahead.
I was just saying it's muted, but I had to look at this painting several times to figure out what that thing was, and I guess it's the backside of a man, right?
Where?
The blue cape, isn't that a round person standing?
There's a person here. This is a cape around this person kneeling on the boat, but it's not. How's he kneeling in this boat? It doesn't make sense. But this is a cloak. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's people. Is that people in hell or people on the river? What's the name of the river where people? Grabbing because they want life. Is that what that is?
Yeah, they're in hell and they're trying to get into the boat, and they're passing through this river of Styx. Yeah, I mean that's the story. Yeah. Again, here's a burnt orange tone, which this is halfway. It's interesting. It's right smack in the middle of the painting. This has a little bit of red. It's a reddish orange that kind of offsets both the green and the blue. It's almost like complements to both, because red and green are complements, and this has some red in it, so that'll balance it. And orange and blue are complement, but it's got orange. It's an orangey red, so it balances this cloak, color-wise, balances the red and the blue. It's like red, yellow, blue are the primary colors. All right, so this is he's featured two of them. Pretty, although this is definitely a darkened blue, but it's blue. He's featured two of them, and then he's got the more muted yellow in the front. Okay, and so, but it's still primary. The three primary colors. Okay, that's interesting. They did that. Yeah, and then he distributes it. He distributes these colors throughout. Also over here, the orangey, the greens over here, and there's washed out variations. Okay, so yeah, I mean this is all conscious choices. He didn't just say, oh, why does he do this? These are intentional choices. He understands the color wheel. He understands how colors work on you, how they balance each other, and that's all.
It looks like he's using the brown that's in that that orangey, whatever, that cloak, as similar to the way you might use gray.
Yeah, okay, color grades, yeah. So again, you mix them by mixing complements. If you mix orange and blue, you're going to get something like this. Yeah, and look at the size of the space it's taking up, right? Here, there's these color grays, or this here, they're throughout the paintings. They're not gray that you get from black and white. That's kind of ugly. They're colored grays that you get by mixing colors on the opposite end of the color wheel. It depends which ones you want.
It looks like he's also using light, like white and yellow, and there's like the two figures grabbing onto the boat, and also the fire that's behind that city wall.
Right, there's the red, picks up the red here, picks up some.
But it also has that yellow that's similar to the yellow in the two bodies.
Exactly, and this color here picks up the color in the road, right? This darkish green. This is a dark native green here. That is the edge of this others, another cloak that leads to the hands. Yeah, so violet, there's violet in this violet here, violet. The complement of violet is yellow, which is distributed throughout. So he's using all the complementaries in various ways. But you don't want to do that too much. You want to feature some. He's featuring, I think, red and green, blue and orange. What else do I want to say? Yeah, so it's really fascinating to analyze painting for particularly somebody like him, this colorist, and how they're using color. What decisions are they making? How is he using complements? How's he using that color wheel? And how does that impact you? And then the highlights, the white highlights that are here, 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 here on the bottom, here, here across the bottom.
So Joe, did he specify whether or not this represents a moment in history, or is it?
No, this is from the Divine Comedy. This is Dante's poem. This is Beatrice leading Dante through hell. Maybe they're just in hell. Okay, so this is a painting from the Divine Comedy. That poet.
I see.
Right. Yeah. The river Styx, and these are souls that are trying to get free. They're coming throughout the story. If you read the Divine Comedy, they're pleading for understanding, or they want to listen to my story, or can you help me? Yeah, as Beatrice is leading Dante through the different layers of hell.
At Delacroix's request, Eurene came to view the work. His response was that it was absurd, detestable, and exaggerating. "Why ask me to come and see this?" Eurene asked. "You knew what I must say." Others speculated that Theodore Géricault, who painted the Raft of Medusa, which stimulated Delacroix to produce his own work, had involvement in the process. Despite all of this, his work was received at the Paris Salon that year. Delacroix was deeply moved and inspired by the Greek War of Independence, leading to the production of Massacre at Chios in 1824. It depicts sick and dying Greek civilians facing imminent demise by the Turks. This work led to Delacroix's recognition as a leading painter in the New Romantic style. Massacre at Chios was in turn bought by the state.
This is a very subdued and limited palette he's using. And he's just using two complements. He's using yellow and violet, featuring the warm yellow, gold, and then the gray down subdued, desaturated violets, and creating these figures throughout. They're actually frames. But right behind the people, right behind this yellow, this is another use of complements. You want this to stand out, knowing that violet and yellow are complementary colors. This is the featured color, the yellowed warm skin tone, and then right behind a very subdued desaturated violet, and it jumps out at you. So it's all the color. Then he repeats it, but with less saturation throughout. Here repeats the yellow and then desaturated violet.
That looks like Mayor Bob on the left.
Yeah. So what you can do with a limited palette, two colors, and then with some reddish highlights that are subdued. So And it creates a unity of tone. It's just one thing. And colors not competing with each other. It's all working together. Take two colors and you can create a masterpiece. Just decide what the colors are.
That horse's head really stands out.
Yeah, and that's the lightest, right? And if you were one way to study a composition, I should do this sometime, is you remove the color in a software like Photoshop, or and you take the color out and you just keep it to black and whites, and maybe you reduce to black, darkest black, whitest white, and maybe 5 or 6 shades of gray in between. And then your eye isn't concerned about the color, but then you can see the underlying structure, underlying composition, and the abstract pattern. Every painting has a skeleton that's an abstract pattern that draws the eye through the painting. But removing the color really helps you then see it. I'll do that sometime. But you can see this. You would see this art.
So you said that he was using a limited palette. Did he have no other choices?
No, he did.
Of colors?
Any color he wanted.
He did?
There's a choice.
He chose to use these.
Yeah. And the artists do that today. I do it. It's like, well, what palette do I want to use for this painting?
Yeah.
Choose maybe 3 colors, and the color wheel, the triad, like orange, green, and violet.
Mm-hmm.
But just to look at so many Chinese paintings, are just red and green. That's it. And then there have been Western paintings, 2 colors, and then you mix them together, and then you can create tints. You can create an infinite amount of colors from just 2.
Right.
Infinite amount. Yeah. But it gives a sense of unity to the painting.
Mm-hmm.
You could throw in, like a bit of red, like you said, just to give some visual highlight. And the red dances through the painting here, subdued red here. So there's eye. So again, the eye. This is a horizontal painting that kind of works up. So he's got the eye. You take out the cards. You're going to go this way. You're going to go up, and then it's kind of this arch, this U shape. And it's going to get repeated in the background, and then it's held in place by this horizontal horizon line. But there's a sweep also of sky and clouds that kind of, you could say there's a circular motion. Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I would say it's a circular motion, but it's objects, people here, and then it's picked up by this foggy kind of atmosphere. So it's like a swirl. You got a swirl. I would say it would go this way.
Yeah.
And so the eye is moving like this, around and around, and it's all intentional. And it's using highlights of colors, the reds, so to move you around like that. Yeah. That's the art of composition. It's all different things. Most people, when they say, "What do you think of this painting?" People who are not trained in art, they will go, "I like the color." They will go, "Color is primary." Color. Very few people will see the composition or comment on it. You have to have training. They just don't see it. It's implied. And that's fine. But if you go on a museum tour, the docents are not going to talk about the composition. They'll talk about the story of the painting. What's the story behind this? And it could be a photograph, but they're not going to give you the artistic techniques or the color choices, the composition, the brushwork. Usually they don't comment because most general public's not so interested in that. I am. So.
Hey Joe, in the background, far on the left-hand side, what is that supposed to be? Is that a town on a hillside? I mean, looks like there's a valley and then there's a town. Looks like there's a camp of men. But what is this thing that looks like a whirlwind that's going up?
Yeah, who knows? Oh, yeah, there's just a suggestion. This is like a battle. There's a battle here going on. You see some guns. It could be guns. It's like gun smoke, like a field of battle, cannons, and there's smoke that rises up. The suggestion that there's a battle here. There's a battle in the foreground. There's a battle here, and then it kind of goes off into a suggestion of settlements or town. But it looked like they could have been destroyed. Maybe they've been wiped out. And
maybe it's pillage and burning, burning crops.
These are refugees. There's a band of you know, the more you look at it, yeah, it's a good point. This could be a band of refugees. They've stopped. They're firing back at the attackers or the horse here. And this is the foreground, another band of refugees. Maybe these are the enemy. Maybe they've captured these women, bringing them, hauling them into slavery. Yeah, I'm sure that you can get into the whole storyline of this, but it looks like definitely a war scene, not something.
I'm impressed with the subtlety of expression
Yeah.
on the faces, like the man Elizabeth looks like Baba.
Yeah.
He's obviously seriously injured, but at a glance, it didn't appear. I just saw, oh, it's a handsome face, you know.
Right.
But then as I look closely, he's holding his side, and he doesn't look like he's feeling too good.
No, I don't think
you
so.
know, and that's not some I mean,
yeah, these are refugees.
Artists capture something quite that subtle. I don't know.
They've been through the battle. This man, this woman. Look at the faces. They're exhausted. They've been through hell. Look at this woman. They're the horrors. These people are holding each other over here. They're holding on for dear life. They're suffering. These are people. These women are. This guy is obviously the Turk. Maybe it's like, I think the Turks and the Greeks. He's a Turk. He's on the horse. He's in a powerful position.
And I think the turban is the guy, a Turk, and he's got a rifle.
Yeah, he's got a
bought by the state.
Oops, he's got a rifle here. Yeah, so the bad guys are the Turks.
Critics of the war.
Violet. Okay, they're dark, and that's another thing. That's a good point. They're in dark. They're the bad guys, and the victims, the good guys, the Greeks are in yellow. Yeah. So yeah, that's a storyline there. Yeah. So, just using color can evoke those emotions, can influence how we perceive it. Yeah, and you can see this whole, when you zoom in, there's a military action happening here. They're fending off probably more of the attackers on horseback. So yeah, their city's been pillaged and they've been dragged off. And yeah.
Work, however, found his art to be too controversial, showing suffering and despair. In response to the capture of the Greek city of Missolonghi by Turkish forces in 1825, Delacroix released his second work, Greece on the Ruins of Missolonghi. The whole picture serves as a monument to the people of Missolonghi and the idea of freedom against tyrannical rule. The success of Missolonghi led him to produce his next famous work, The Death of Sardanapalus. Through the use of beautiful colors, exotic costumes, and tragic events, this work depicts a besieged king watching impassively as guards carry out his orders to kill his servants, concubines, and animals. It is widely accepted that the inspiration for Sardanapalus came from a play by Byron, one of his influences, who also led to the development of Massacre at Chios. Delacroix drew inspiration from not only Byron, but other literary sources of the time, including Scottish historical novelist, playwright, and poet Sir William Scott. Scott's work led to the creation of The Murder of the Bishop of Liege in 1829. In the 1830s, France...
There's the bishop.
What is all that green stuff?
Where the yellow? It's yellow. It's all yellow.
That looks lime green on my iPad.
It's yellow. So it's so there's the yellow of the bishop's robe, but then it's this. What is it that gets spread out? And it gets
a table or the floor. Hard to say.
Yeah, so this is river of gold light that just goes right through the painting.
I think that's his train, maybe.
Yeah, but it's unrealistic. It couldn't happen that way. But it's creating an artistic effect. Okay, dramatic. It's like just a river, and on two sides of the river, and then this the bishop is getting, I guess the story is he's getting killed. So, but again, two colors, yellow and violet are complementary colors. That's all there is in here.
A reddish blue.
Yeah, he means the red.
I mean, bluish red, sorry.
Reddish violet, but violets, reddish violets, but they're all in that next to each other on the color wheel. Violet, reddish violet. You have a blue violet, violet, or red violet. Okay, so he's using the three violets. Colors, there's no pure yellow, there's no pure blue, doesn't exist, and there's no pure red, yellow, green. Okay, they either lean red or they lean cool or they lean warm. They lean towards yellow, or they lean towards red. And so certain violets will do that. So artists will intentionally use that. But there's no such thing in nature.
Am I going crazy?
Yes, what?
Oh, sorry.
Pure yellow, pure red, blue. It doesn't exist. It's either leans like ultraviolet, ultramarine blue leans more towards red, I think it is. Hold on a second. Hold on. I'm gonna tell you. Hold on.
Does anybody else see a table there with food on it? And candles?
And the yellow's the tablecloth.
It's a tablecloth, yeah. That's a big table that they were eating.
Oh, right, yeah.
At, I think.
That's good. I didn't even see that.
Look, Joe, in the middle. We
Right.
got
You're absolutely right. I didn't even see that. It's a table, but
we've
it all.
got candles and food
Yeah, okay.
tureens and stuff.
That's true. It is, and I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. So where is the guy who was killed?
Here.
The bishop.
He's here.
Where?
Here, right there. Can you see my mouse?
So it's confusing because the bishop's in that color. The serving guy carrying that bottle of wine or whatever it is next to him is in the same color, and the table's the same color. The tablecloth. Whatever. Tablecloth.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So he did that intentionally, but you get this river of yellow light. It's a table here, a tablecloth. It's the bishop's robe or cassock.
Okay.
And then it's his arm, and then it's also the burning.
And you got some lights sort of in the background, I
So
guess.
yellow is serving to create different objects as it moves through the painting.
Joe, you missed one guy with the red hat on. He's got the same color vestments.
Here.
To the right of the bishop, there's a guy with a red hat.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Go down. He's got the same color robe
Right.
on.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So anyway, it's again just looking at the composition, how the eye moves through the painting. A totally limited palette. Red, the violets, red violet, blue violet, and then all subdued, and this bright yellow. Okay, so which jumps out of the paint like a river of gold. I want to say that. Okay, so. Like ultramarine blue color leans red. It's got red in it. Okay. Phthalo blue, which is a modern color, leans towards yellow. Okay. Cadmium lemon yellow leans towards blue. Cadmium yellow medium leans towards red. Cadmium red medium leans towards yellow. Okay. Alizarin crimson leans blue. You can mix paints with that, but understanding that some of these red, blue, and yellow are leaning one direction or another towards blue or towards yellow or red. Okay, artists use that intentionally. And if you were to mix cadmium red medium, which leans yellow, with cadmium yellow medium, which leans red, you got a really bright orange. Okay. If you want a subdued orange, you would mix alizarin crimson with cadmium yellow medium. There's a whole once you grasp how this color wheel, understanding which red, yellow, blue, which way they lean, and then you can mix them to either pick a vivid color or a more muted color of oranges and it's artists train in this and use that intentionally. That's what I'm trying to say.
Joe, the building that they're in,
Yeah.
at first I thought it was a cathedral, but is it a castle instead of a cathedral since it's got a table in it?
I don't know. It's hard to tell. It looks like a cathedral to me.
What did they say the title of the painting is again?
Murder of some archbishop. Yeah, I don't. It was a historical event.
Probably from French Revolution, huh?
Yeah, it could be. Yeah.
But it wasn't Thomas à Becket,
No. This was a
who was
current,
the Archbishop of Canterbury who got
no,
murdered.
contemporary event that he was dramatizing. Okay. He's creating a sense of space. I mean, there's the painting is really divided in half. There's the bottom half, but there's full people, full of action, and then the top half of the painting is just the space of the cathedral with these windows suggested, the darker windows, the rows of etc. This basic cathedral structure, and the columns, the bricks all over. But it's like a peaceful space up above, and this is turmoil down here. It's like, who knows why they killed him? I don't know. That the history of it is interesting, but it's not meant to be it's not meant. He's capturing the emotion, the feeling, and put yourself in. I guess for me, imagine being in this man's position, where you've got hundreds of people. There's a suggestion all wanting to kill you. It looks like he's got a guard, but I don't know why they want to kill him. But this poor guy has no power. he's going. I don't know what he did.
Well, you can see them taking off his I forgot what it's called, crown and his crozier
and his
on
costume.
the
Staff has been read. Yeah, he's about. It's like almost like Jesus getting crucified. I don't know if he did something wrong or he's being unfairly victimized. I don't know the story, but
there were a lot of problems with the church during those times, Protestant and Catholics.
so, but the way he painted it is like, and his face kind of I think stands out more clearly because he's got that the yellow. And it's also a cross. You know, there's the yellow. He's creating his arms out. He's creating a cross, the crucifixion thing. So.
But you can't see
Found
anybody
itself.
murdering him. I mean,
No,
there's
it's leading up to it. It'll happen. It's going to happen soon. It's the moment right before. Yeah. He wants to create the drama and the fear that this bishop's experiencing, the intensity,
the propensity.
Yeah. It's an emotional truth. It's a work of art. It's capturing some emotional truth. Yeah.
Torn in a state of revolution. Once again moved by the political climate of the time, Delacroix's next work depicted the romantic image of the spirit of liberty. Liberty leading the people would go on to not only become his most famous work, but also a symbol of the revolution itself. The success of Liberty leading the people allowed Delacroix to be provided many other opportunities to receive government commissions for murals and ceiling paintings. Delacroix grew tired of the civilized ways of Paris. In an effort to see a more primitive culture, he retreated to northern Africa as part of a diplomatic mission to Morocco following the French requisition of Algeria. Though his intentions were not to study art, he produced over 100 paintings and drawings during his stay. Based on the lives of the northern African people, these works added a new and personal chapter to his own interest in Orientalism. In 1838, Delacroix produced his first large-scale depiction of a scene from Greek mythology, Medea about to kill her children. This painting was a huge success at the Salon. Despite the success, Delacroix found himself disappointed when the painting was sent to the Musée des Beaux-Arts. His intentions were for his works to hang alongside each other at the Luxembourg. Eugene Delacroix was a curious mixture of skepticism, politeness, dandyism, willpower, cleverness, despotism, and finally, a king of special goodness and tenderness that will always accompany genius. In 1843, he decorated the Church of Saint Denis du Saint-Sacrement with a large Pieta. From 1848 to 1850, he painted the ceiling in the Galerie d'Apollon on the Louvre. From 1857 to 1861, he worked in the Chapelle d'Aix at Saint-Sulpice. Though he enjoyed his work, it was long and fatiguing. This led to his deterioration into a fragile state. In need of rest, Delacroix sought solitude in his countryside cottage. It was here that his devoted housekeeper, Jean-Marie Leguliau, carefully attended to his needs. On August 13, 1863, Eugene Delacroix died with Jean-Marie by his side. This day will forever be remembered as the day the face of painting during the Romantic period of the French Revolution was silenced.
Alright. So I'm gonna have 348. Okay, so the good site, there's the wiki art. Go there.
In 1656, when Velázquez was 57 years old, he completed the picture known as Las Meninas, the Maids of Honor. It was the most ambitious painting of his illustrious career, a vast canvas showing a group of figures in Velázquez.
So it's wiki art, and it's Delacroix, and they have all his painting on 236, not all of them, but a large selection. You just scroll through some of these with the remaining time. I think it'd be good to do. Like I said, I like their setup of this website because the quality of the imagery is really good, and you just slide through them. One of his Algiers paintings, famous one.
Joe,
yes.
I don't know if you're into it, but I'd like to hear anything you might have to say. I mean, he has a wonderful mastery of representing light and use of color. And if you might consider just compare and contrast with Rembrandt in that regard.
Right. Rembrandt, when Rembrandt did 60 self-portraits, and his other portraits they just have a deeper psychological, spiritual profundity to them that I don't think Delacroix had. There's a spiritual depth and technique. Is when you look at Rembrandt's self-portraits up close, it's like, oh my God, it's like his and the older he got, there's this mastery of brushstrokes and this tonal quality that no one has ever really come close to. Very few people, if any, have come close to equaling. And he's compared to Shakespeare. What Shakespeare did for play literature and psychological explorations of human Hamlet. Rembrandt did it with painting. And so how many Shakespeares are there? Right? How many Rembrandts are there? One. And Delacroix is a masterful painting, but his people do not have the psychological spiritual depth that Rembrandt's did. But his compositions, I mean, Delacroix compositions, color are magnificent, but it's nowhere near, I would say, Rembrandt's mastery of a line and just doing a psychological portrait. It's just, we don't have time to look at his work to do that. But so, does that answer your question?
It certainly does touch on it very nicely. Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, There's Rembrandt, and then there's everybody else. That's what I feel about it. And that might be an exaggeration. I don't agree with me, but you say that plays, literature, well, Shakespeare, and there's great writers throughout history, but why is Shakespeare Shakespeare? There's like an unmatchable quality about Shakespeare that I think applies to Rembrandt. And I've heard it said there's people, and I've experienced it. You stand in front of a Rembrandt, it's like you're so awed by what he's doing or what he's done. You just want to bow to it. You want to like worship it. It's like a deed. It's like, oh my God. It's like this cannot be equal. And I don't get that from Delacroix, or very you're in awe of his. I'm in awe of his painting technique. But there is a mastery or spiritual dimension to Rembrandt that is unparalleled. I was going to say one of my most highlight of my gallery visiting when I was in Amsterdam. I got lucky. I was there for 4 days coming back from India. And I did not know this, but at the Rijksmuseum where the Rembrandts are, they were having an opening. The third day I got there, it opened. I was on that of his later self-portraits, which I had collected from all over the world. It's like, what? And it opened at 1 o'clock in the afternoon on a Friday, and I thought it was going to be mobbed. And I get there early, and like for the first hour and a half, there's like 10 of us in the museum. I couldn't believe it. And if it was in New York, if it was at the Met, the line would have gone to New Jersey. And so for the first hour and a half, I got to stand as long as I wanted in front of these paintings. And then the crowd started coming when people got off at work at 4 o'clock on. It's like, so I'll never forget that. And just to have that time and to be able to spend it without the jostling crowd or feeling you got to move on. I could, spend as long as I wanted in front of these paintings. And it's hard to describe, but when you really, you see photographs of them. Maybe you've seen a couple in the Met or different museums, but that quantity of them, all the great masterpieces, this self-portraits is like.
Joe, have you already discussed Rembrandt previously? Probably you have, right?
Rembrandt, oh yeah.
No, have you done a session on Rembrandt already?
Yes, yeah, I did earlier on. We could touch on them again if people want. Can you do Shakespeare in 2 hours? I just did Rembrandt 2 weeks ago, so it's fresh on my mind for the OLLI class I'm teaching. We have 5 of.
Rembrandt certainly was not so seems Delacroix is pretty possessed with the violence.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, he didn't. Rembrandt did biblical scenes, and some of them were, violent. Samson getting his head cut off, his hair, whatever. Goliath. So there were some violent biblical scenes he painted, but Rembrandt, except for a couple paintings, he didn't do these huge crowd scenes. There's this blur of action and color. Everything's like dissolving into each other.
A lot of work, yeah. I would think, yeah.
A flush of, it's like people being flushed down a riverbed or something. I don't know. Rembrandt wouldn't do this. Yeah, it's like you can't even distinguish who individuals in this rush of color and action. Okay, it's interesting. It's fascinating. You get some. What's this? Is that a painting? I guess that's a sculpture. He's playing with like paint animals. Saint Sebastian. This looks like a pastel.
Is this Delacroix? These are looking at.
This still Delacroix. Yeah. We should end in about a minute here. We got to transfer it over. But I just wanted to point you to his murals. I wanted to point you to this site, the Wiki Art with Delacroix, featuring Delacroix. Okay, 200 and some of his paintings. We'll spend more time on them. All right, I think we covered him. I had a few more videos, but I think we did him justice. And let's pick up with Caspar David Friedrich, who's really fascinating. German romantic landscape painter, and how he brought a whole new take on the landscape, and that no one else had done, and has been very influential in modern art. All right. Any final comments for a minute or two? Sorry for talking so fast. I think I want to get a lot in.
It's wonderful as usual.
Great, good. So now we know about and again, big influence on modern art with his use of color. And modern art, modern paints. There are painters who paint like Rembrandt or try to, but there's also this whole Matisse influence way of doing portraits that maybe come from Delacroix. You do it very loosely. You don't over define it. It just it's the color that matters and not the modeling of the face or anything. You kind of leave that simplified, and that's what Matisse did. Matisse didn't do any. Well, he wasn't layering colors in great depth like Rembrandt, yeah. So, but also, for someone as great as Rembrandt, you must know he went bankrupt, and you can divide his life. The first part of his life was very successful, had huge amount of money. He was doing what these wealthy merchants wanted, the portraits, and then he started going his own way. He lost his wife, died, his children died, and he went bankrupt, and his life his outer surroundings, people, money just went downhill, and that's when he started doing his best paintings. And he started following his artistic instinct, which was contrary to what he was meeting their needs, doing these portraits early in life, and then he went his own way as he developed, and they did not like it, and he lost everything. And he's got some commissions, but he's living in poverty just about, across from a carnival, and drunks are on his doorstep. He had this very expensive home, and so as his external circumstances got worse and worse, and his painting got better and better. It didn't have to be that way. He could have stayed. He could have been the equivalent of a multimillionaire. He could have been the Picasso of his age in terms of financial, if he just stayed with what he was doing. And he didn't want to do that. He's followed
Good for him.
Yay! Yes, and he paid a price for it. He paid for it.
Is that still Delacroix you're talking about?
No, that was Rembrandt. That was just a little riff on Rembrandt.
Oh, Rembrandt.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, that was Rembrandt. And yet his portraits towards the end, he's making himself more like a king. Despite got drunks on his doorstep, but he's painting himself. Like when you see those things, it's like where I'm going, very few people are going, and I don't care what's happening. I am a king. And he was, Muhammad Ali, I am the greatest. That's what he was saying that in painting. And the truth is, Muhammad Ali was the greatest. And he can say that because he's telling the truth. And he said it with his portraits. He did 60 self-portraits. No one else had done that before. Nobody. And very few people since. He's giving himself, just like now people take photographs of through their whole life. He was doing paintings through his whole, all the different, from youth to his old age. And it's a magnificent legacy. You see his skill developing and his ability to do psychological, spiritual portraits with himself and sparing he would show all the blotches showing up, but it's just amazing. It's it was an incredible privilege. I've seen this in person at the Rijksmuseum. All right, I got to pass this over. All right, so see you all. Okay.
Thank you, Joe.
Bye.
Oh, thank you.
Wonderful.
Great class.
Well, okay. Yeah, let's call it a day. Good to see you, Ralph.
Likewise, yeah.
Yep, good to see you, buddy. Everybody have a great week. Okay, thank you, Greg. Appreciate it.
You too, Greg. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.